SonicLAB TV.
We're looking at the AVID Mbox 3. It doesn't actually say Mbox 3 here, but this is the third in the Mbox generation. I think going back, must be at least 10 years, there was the first shark fin style one that had Focusrite preamps, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, this is obviously by AVID, formerly DigiDesign. What it is a 24-bit 96K USB 2 audio interface. Has 4 I/O simultaneous, and comes with Pro Tools 8 LE as standard. Let's take a look. So, let's take a look at the unit itself. Here it is. It's very solid and very heavy actually. I mean, this is a solid metal casing all the way around. Looks like it's a single piece. Good sturdy kind of connections on the back. Everything seems to be screwed in rather than wobbling on surface mount connectors. While we're around the back, let's take a look at the inputs. We've got mic line inputs here, combi connectors. We've got monitor outputs here, SP-Diff I/O, MIDI I/O, and USB. There's no power, so this is obviously bus powered. Around the front, we've got the gain for the inputs. We can switch between front and rear inputs using this switch here. Front inputs appear to be guitar or instrument level. You adjust the input gain with this knob here. Pulling that out gives you an additional 20 dB pad. There's also this little button here which is called soft limit, which when you switch this in lets you put in some limiting circuitry that stops your inputs from clipping. Can sound quite nice, I'm told. We'll check that out later. These two buttons here, 48 volt phantom power for powering mics, and this little multi button which allows you to assign various MIDI functions only with the Pro Tools LE as I understand. We've then got dedicated headphone output with its own volume, the master volume, which is presumably so you can feed a pair of active monitors, and some nice feature here gives you dim, which dims the sound by 20 dB or so, and a mono switch so you can check the mixes in mono. Also in the box, we get our install of Pro Tools 8 LE, a getting started leaflet and some other paperwork, activation codes, and also a USB cable. So clearly, I just want to get up and running as quick as possible. So I picked up the getting started leaflet, and the first thing I see is, do not plug this into your computer, install the DVD, which in fact means install Pro Tools LE, and I don't want to do that. So my bit of advice, get onto the AVID website, download the latest driver, which is a single download, it's about 10 megs or so, and then you can install the thing on your computer without having to install Pro Tools LE. You may already have Pro Tools, or you may not want to use Pro Tools LE. So what I'm going to do is I'm plugging my radio mic into the back of the Mbox so you can hear what it sounds like. I've set the gain on the front, probably a little bit too hot here. One thing I have noticed is it's quite sensitive. I'm there and I'm just turning up a little bit and then suddenly it's blowing up. Right, so let's have a look at the control panel for the Mbox. Right here, it's pretty self-explanatory really. We've got monitoring for the analog inputs, the SP-Diff input and metering. One cool thing that we do have is the ability to add effects to the mix. So what I'm going to do here is just put a big hall on there, and I can then add some reverb, duration, just for a little bit of sweetening, something that's kind of useful if you've got a vocalist. You're not recording the output here, this is monitor only, so it's obviously DSP on board that gives you access. Algorithms are room 1, 2 and 3, hall 1 and 2, plate, delay and echo. Now a word about the actual physical inputs. When it says there are 4 simultaneous inputs, that's very true, and although there are 4 hardware analog inputs, the 4 simultaneous inputs are like this. So if we just take a look at the flow, you can see we've got inputs 1 and 2, which are switchable via the front panel to either the front or the rear. And then we have SP-Diff. So we have simultaneous 4 channels of I/O, 2 analog, 2 SP-Diff. Basically, the way that this works is it allows you to set up independent monitor mixes. So the monitor mix for analog output 1 and 2 is set in this tab, and then you can set a separate mix to come out of SP-Diff. Moving on to the master section, this has got some really nifty features as well. I can mute left or right separately. I can swap left and right. I can also affect the width of the stereo mix, so I can bring the sides in, and I can affect the balance. Another really useful little function is there's a guitar tuner. Now I've tried this and it's actually pretty effective, pretty good accuracy. Obviously plug the guitar into the input on the front panel, and just a really handy, useful little extra feature. The other thing that we want to take a look at is something called soft limit, and this is switchable on the front panel. So I've got a drum track playing out into the Mbox inputs and we're monitoring here. You can see that it's occasionally peaking. Now if I switch the soft limit buttons in, it removes that peaking and keeps the signal under control. According to the manual, what this actually does is apply a smooth, overdriven tape type limiting to strong input signals. The price of it, it's obviously a premium product, and in the UK it's £425, worth $679 US. It may not have escaped your attention that Pro Tools 9 native is now available. You can in fact get an upgrade path from Pro Tools LE that comes with this up to full Pro Tools 9, which will work on this hardware and give you all the advantages. That comes in at 179 UK pounds, $249 US. My lasting impression of this Mbox is one of quality. Certainly the build quality is there, but also the monitoring quality, the listening quality. When I was using this as my audio system and listening to stuff that I was familiar with, I was noticing more width and depth and clarity, and that's a good thing. So the D2As are obviously better. Same with the A to Ds, they're perfectly acceptable, and I didn't hear anything that would make me think otherwise. You also get obviously Pro Tools LE8 into the bundle, which means install that and you've got a fully functioning DAW with MIDI and audio capabilities. AVID have done a good job here, and they've created something that is actually a cut above a lot of the other USB audio interfaces, and that's something I think is worth paying for.